Welcome, everyone, to a brand new episode of the Media Row podcast. I'm your host, Justin Miller. As always, a huge thank you to the sponsors that make these shows happen in Stevens Automotive and Sales and Kelly's Little Nipper. Go over to Kelly's Little Nipper, 1701 East Grand Avenue in Des Moines. You're going to find great food, great drinks, and even better community, as well as a great deal. Get over there, use the keyword that you hear on this show in Woodley. Yes, as in Joe Woodley, our guest today. Use Woodley, and the first drink is on the house. Not a bad deal. Not a bad deal at all. So get your butt over there, 1701 East Grand Avenue in Des Moines. And when you go to Kelly's Little Nipper, make sure to let them know that Media Row sent you. So it is a Wednesday. You guys know what that means by now. Wednesdays with Woodley. Yes, Coach Joe Woodley hopping on the show here in just a few moments after a first in his coaching career. This will be the first time he's ever had to bounce back from a loss in the regular season. It's an incredible stat. I mean, we've talked about it a couple of times in the preseason, I think right before the first week as well. Didn't talk about it in Monday's show, which if you missed, make sure to go back to the podcast and listen to it. But it is an incredible stat, and it finally got snapped last weekend in South Dakota State as the Jackrabbits take down the Bulldogs 37-21. South Dakota State still number 2 in the country in FCS, so it's not a bad loss. And when you look at everything that was handed to the Bulldogs before the game and during the game, I still think they outperformed, and there's still a lot of excitement behind this team. So cannot wait to get our conversation with Coach Joe Woodley going here in just a few moments. But before we do, need to do some housekeeping. First, if you guys could, please go over to the YouTube page, subscribe wherever you get this podcast. If you're listening, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, rate. Always appreciate it. You guys make this show happen. I really appreciate the support and just love interacting with the listeners and the viewers. So rate, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Please continue to support the Media Row podcast. Now, with that out of the way, let's welcome to the show, Coach Joe Woodley. All right, Coach. Well, thank you again, as always, so much for doing this for me. I know it was a late night, early morning, long hours, and still being able to do this for me. I always greatly appreciate it. It means the world.
Yeah, no, Justin, I appreciate you doing it and, just giving exposure to Drake and Drake football. And, of course, always want to help you out too. So I don't know if I am. I don't know. I don't know
No,
if this is
I
helping or
love
not.
how you're allowing us to send off the podcast to get posted on the Drake football Twitter page. That's been awesome. And the numbers have been going up. So I guess people are liking it.
Good, good. We're doing our part for you, man. All about helping people out, good
um,
people out.
you talk about, getting exposure to this team. This weekend was a great opportunity for it. And I think even though it was a loss to South Dakota State, I think you showed ESPN Plus and all the viewers kind of what you are wanting to build here at Drake.
Yeah, Justin, I think, well, I shouldn't say I think, but Yeah, these are the types of opportunities that, kind of back in December when, I was making a decision to look into this job. I think these are the types of games you circle and you want to play in these types of environments. And I don't think our players are any different in that regard. I think that's why they choose to come play this level of football and to get opportunities like that and, go over and play a team that's won, I think, 2 out of the last 3 national titles. And they're always in consideration and really a big time. I can't imagine many FCS environments being better. I'm sure there's a lot that are similar, and I know we're going into another pretty hostile one this weekend. Maybe a different style because it's indoors, and that brings about some other challenges. But just a beautiful facility over there in Brookings, and it was a sellout. I think it was like 300 people shy of the biggest crowd they've ever had.
Wow.
At least I thought I saw that somewhere. So It was a blackout. There was a lot of things, in the environment the other night that made it pretty neat. And yeah, we certainly, I think as a competitor, as a coach, player, I think anytime you step between the white lines, you've got to have that mentality that you expect to win a football game. And now, when you're playing a team of that caliber, that shrinks the margins of error that you can have. And we just made too many mistakes and in some critical moments when we had a chance to, kind of put some pressure on them. But at the end of the day, yeah, it was, just real appreciative of our guys' effort, and just the sideline in general, players, coaches. Again, we're still all getting to know each other. That we played that Upper Iowa game seemed like 2 months ago. And, so this was just our second go around with one another and just kind of seeing how everybody reacts because we had, plenty of adversity in that game. And what I saw was number one, a team that was, really looking after one another and kind of forgetting about the last play and just going to the next, as well as the coaches, that we have on staff. I was really proud of them. But again, at the end of the day, the goal was to go over there and put ourselves in a position to win the football game. And I don't want to say we ran out of gas because I thought our guys played to the very end, but we just didn't have enough, to get to that finish line. And but certainly encouraged with a lot of the things that I did see and things we can learn from and hopefully apply them this week in another game against an outstanding opponent, traditionally, outstanding opponent, well coached team. You name it. So again, just excited to go have another crack at it, so to speak.
Well, I'll get this question out of the way for you. I'm sure you're expecting this one, but any updates on the quarterback situation now? Drake really having to get into the depth chart with the starting quarterback Spellman being out for last weekend, and then Xavier Washington unfortunately going out as well.
Yeah, X is still day to day. Chase, there's, you know, we're still day to day with really all of them. But I guess the silver lining that came out of it was, first and foremost, really proud of X for stepping in and really his first college experience and leading us right down the field on an opening drive touchdown to kind of get some momentum swung in our favor. And so real proud of him for doing that. And then unfortunately, a couple series later, he goes down. And then all of a sudden we gotta bring in Logan, who's, he's a few months removed from his high school graduation, and to throw him out there in that environment against one of the top programs in the country, and I thought he went out there and played pretty admirably, more than admirably. We always look back at some of the mistakes that that you make, but I guess that's just human nature with coaches. But boy, did he had a lot of big plays too, and real proud of him. So like I said, maybe that silver lining is we built some depth in that room, and that's usually a position where you don't usually see a backup, and we've already played three guys, and I thought for the most part they've all played well, and I think that's a little bit of what our offensive system, I think, does. I think it can be quarterback friendly, and I think Kyle has done a real good job of kind of tailoring things to each guy, and that's just his experience is number one being a quarterback, and I think he kind of understands that, and then obviously some of the things he's done in the past with where he's been, I think has positioned him to be able to do those kinds of things with the guys we have, and because it is such an important position, and I think we've done the most with what we have right now, and but again, it's still day to day. We're trying to figure out, who is it going to be, this coming Saturday, just with health and obviously, how they practice too. We put a lot of stock into how they practice, and especially at that position, because you better be locked in. You better be locked in all week in your preparation and then your production out on the field, and hopefully that translates to game day.
I want to talk about Logan because, yeah, that's a tough situation all around for a true freshman where you weren't expecting to play. You get put into this situation on the road, number two team in the country, blackout, like you said, almost a sellout crowd. But with everything going against the Bulldogs, thought him and the team performed really well through all that adversity. And I was listening to an interview with Coach Urban Meyer, and he talked about when he would have freshmen or inexperienced quarterbacks going into a hostile environment, he would try to just make the game as easy as possible. Of like, you're not saying, hey, don't go out there and don't make a single mistake. You're just saying, get 10 yards. What was your message about just taking over the rest of the game and just trying to make it easy for him in that hostile environment?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know that I had any specific message at all. It all kind of happened pretty quickly. I mean, I guess when X did get hurt, it was, it was after a turnover, we turned it over on when he did get hurt. So, I'm kind of one of those coaches. I'm not. I think sometimes if you say too much to them, it might get them worked up a little bit. To me, I just think the ultimate confidence is you just put him out there. Let's go see what he's made of. And in all reality, we were, we there was a plan to play Logan no matter what in the game. So, it was a series of plays and. Just because we didn't know how it was going to go with X, and I shouldn't say we didn't know how it was going to go. You just kind of go with with what you feel. But we just feel they each had certain strengths, and so Logan he was definitely on the docket to get into the game at some point. So, but. But what was so impressive about him, and and I probably I didn't know all the complete details of everything. But Kyle's, he had mentioned to me that we were running some things that Logan really hasn't practiced yet either. But that just shows you the detail of preparation and him paying attention, in meetings and just the execution he had on some of the things that he hasn't. I mean, I'm sure he's repped them before, but it's not what really the plan was for him in the game. And and he was able to go out there and be efficient with all those things. And I think it just tells you the maturity of him for only being a true freshman. I just think he's kind of got a little bit of that it factor you're looking at. And I stepped out in the huddle, during one of the 4,000 media timeouts we have. That's something I'm still getting used to. And he's kind of smiling in there and cracking jokes. And I don't want to say he's acting like it's no big deal. I just don't think it really got to him. He was just out there playing, and that was encouraging, and I think that was important for his teammates to see it, especially some of the older guys, and they were rallying around him too. So, I think there wasn't any magic pep talk I gave him. Maybe a coach on the sideline did other than me. I don't know, but I didn't. It's just like kickers. I don't get involved in their world. You just kind of let them work through things, and I think, like I said, I think he responded to whatever it was. It certainly wasn't me saying anything to him, but he went out there and did a, did he did better than I would have expected. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. So just real proud of Logan.
And the whole team responded. This was something we talked about together after the Upper Iowa victory, mostly with Chase of, just getting through that interception and then it was just on after that. He seemed locked in. The team on Saturday, you go out there, you score on the first drive, but then you lose your second string quarterback, you turn over the ball, and yet Drake never felt out of this game. They always felt like they were ready and prepared no matter what the adversity was. Just when you look at this game back as you're starting to prep for South Dakota now, just what were some of the thoughts and the were you proud of the performance that you put out on Saturday?
Yeah, again, certainly not proud of the result, but proud of the effort. And I, there was a couple moments in that game, but probably the one that maybe sticks out as far as us just continuing to battle was well, maybe two of them. We they maybe they got a little bit of an unfortunate spot down there at the end of the first half, and now I say that, and I think we got held on a 4th and 2 that didn't get called, where we would have stopped them. So I think sometimes football always balances itself out a little bit. And that holding call, we would have gotten the ball on like the plus 40-yard line. So, again, I don't even mean to bring up bad things and things like that with the officials. But anyways, we get the ball back. I don't know. I want to say there might have been. 3.5 minutes or so, somewhere in that world. And it's 21-10. We're backed up on the 6 yard line. If it's a three and out, like, hey, we got a punt and they're going to have the ball plus 50 again, and or somewhere close to that world, and they got plenty of time. That driver, Logan, he was in there. He had a couple runs to get us a first down, a couple throws to get us out of the territory, and then we hit the pop pass to our tight end, and the execution he had on that, and then we go down and position ourselves to kick a field goal right before the half to make it a one possession game. Unfortunately, again, those are the mistakes you just can't make in those games. Every point matters, and but to back us out of there and get out of there with them not getting the ball back and having an opportunity to score again before the half, I think was pretty crucial to continue to give us some life. And then right after the half, we come out, kick off the ball, we kick it out of bounds. Again, mistakes you can't make, and they get the ball at the 35. They hit a real big. I don't know if that was the big pass play they hit or the big run, one of the two. But they go down and score, and they're up 28-10. And sometimes when you get up in that neighborhood, maybe the history of this series, this game that's been played, that's kind of when things start to go the other direction. Well, we get the ball back, and Logan leads us right down. Again, I hate saying just Logan, but as the quarterback, we put some things together, a couple runs, everything was kind of clicking, made some clutch third downs that we might have gotten a penalty on that one. I can't remember. Maybe that was the one before the half. Doesn't matter. Short story long, we get down there. Logan hits a big run once we get it across midfield, and then he scores a touchdown. To get it to 28-16, and every coach has got the 2 point play conversion chart, and it tells you probably should go for two in that situation. And pro I don't know that we executed the actual play that was called, but Logan made a play and dumped one out to another true freshman, Nick Herman. We get a 2 point conversion, and here we are again, 10 point game. So those two series, at least on the offensive side of the ball, were pretty telling that we were there to fight, and we were there to win a football game. And like I said, we just didn't quite have enough, but certainly a lot of moments in there with a handful of youngsters playing in some pretty critical spots. And but again, you can learn a lot from those games too, and I certainly think we did.
And we always hear coaches, and it becomes cliche at some points, but we always hear football coaches talk about building a culture. And on Saturday, I was thinking about it of just, man, with this team continuing to battle through all of that was dealt to them, there is already signs of the culture you're wanting to build at Drake. Where does that start? If you're a head coach, brand new roster, you're bringing in a brand new staff, how do you get that started? And man, from the outside, it looks like it's already clicking with the players right away.
I think it's just constantly in progress, Justin. I don't think you just finally arrive and have a culture. I think you just got to constantly build at it, build towards that, and really just having a standard and expectation. And I don't think we're there yet. I appreciate you saying from the outside looking in, it might look like it's there, but you see signs of it. Because we're still we're still young. We've only played two games. I say we're still young, just getting to know each other. And we've only played two games, but I certainly think we're making some steps in the right direction. And I had a meeting with the leadership group the other night, and one of the comments that was made, and they're like, "Man, coach, I've never been through practices like we're going through. Like these are really hard." And I'm like, "Well, good. I'm glad to hear that." And so that just tells you. But what he said after that, he's like, "Man, it just makes the game so much more." I don't know if the word was easy, but he just like um, something to that extent. It makes the games that much more fun to go play in, and things are maybe slowed down a little bit, or because believe me, we are. we're practicing hard, and it's a lot of reps and it's a lot of physicality. I just think we're trying to callous them and build them up for those real physical games, and that was a physical game. It doesn't get much more physical than playing, one of those Dakota schools, much like we're going to do again this week. Just big human beings out there. I've never seen size like that on an offensive line. Now I did back when I was a player, but it's been a while since I've seen that on the coaching on the sidelines, and I think we battled right back at them and. On both sides of the football. So it just tells me all the things that we're trying to do out in practice are starting to show up in the games, and we try to point that out to our guys. And yeah, they're that's not the most enjoyable experience, Tuesday through Thursday. But I know they're appreciating it on game day. That's for sure.
I wish I could remember. It might have been the Urban Meyer thing I was reading earlier, a few weeks ago, of just there was a college coach that was talking about where he wanted to make practices hell so that game day the players were like relaxed, looked forward to it. I don't know if you're trying to make practice hell, but it's kind of the same mindset of to win these games early on in the season, they don't just happen with Tuesday through Thursday practice. They happen through those tough practices in May, June, August, all of that.
Man, I certainly don't think. I hope they don't say it's like hell out there, but to me, it's just we're just trying to get them better. And as an athlete, and I look back at my career, that's all I ever wanted was I wanted to get better, and I wanted a coach to believe that I could be better, and really that's we just have that expectation for them, and again, nothing's ever personal. We preface that with them, and I just think it's just kind of how we go about it out there. And again, we're not doing anything profound. It's just really physical, and I kind of learned that lesson really going into my last season at Grandview. I kind of turned that up a notch, and it's because I went to a certain school's practice and watched how they practice, and I'm like, holy cow. Now it makes a lot of sense why they play so physical, and it kind of opened my eyes, and we implemented that over, at Grandview my last season on how we practiced, and I thought we were playing our best football at the end of the year. Obviously, now, but that's the goal. You want to be playing not that you don't want to be playing great this time of year, but you're always just looking to improve and you do that just by staying consistent and not rewarding them just because they won a game or whatever. You got to put in the work, and our guys are doing it, and that I believe they are buying into. I think they're starting to see the results of that. I think we definitely saw it in that Upper Iowa game. We were clearly the more physical team, I thought. And they were physical too. I shouldn't say clearly, but that's why I believe we won the game. We won the line of scrimmage. It was 200 yards rushing to 15. Saturday night, yeah, they had the upper leg there on the ground rushing, but I thought we were did a pretty admirable job considering what South Dakota State has done to their first two opponents on the ground. I don't even know that Sacramento State had 20 yards, and we were able to churn out, I think, a buck 25, and they were legitimate runs, and quarterback runs are part of the game. I mean, shoot, a lot of South Dakota State's runs were because of the quarterback
Yeah.
runs. So, um, anyways, I just think we're building that mentality of being the more physical team, and it's you're starting to see it, when you pop on the tape, and I take great pride in that. Somebody puts your film on, you want that opposing coach to, you kind of have that talk with them before the game, and they, sometimes you love when they come and say, "Man, you guys are physical. Man, you guys play hard." And not that I'm looking for validation from the opposing coach, but they're the ones that are probably looking at you the most. And but at the end of the day, it's what we think too. It's how we feel about it, and but again, I think we're certainly trending in that direction. We're gonna keep trying to do that, to the best of our ability, and we've got the right kind of kids, the right makeup. That you got to have kids that are willing to do it too, and these guys have certainly been living that to this point. Now we've only played 2 games. We've got 9 more to do, and we got to continue to get better.
I want to hit on one more thing about last weekend's game before we preview South Dakota this week. But I thought Kyle's play calling was very strong throughout the game. I liked how you guys were getting Taj Hughes involved. Just when you have a inexperienced quarterback, it's so vital having a guy like Taj Hughes or Foley, Voth, those guys out there that can kind of create their own plays, make it a lot easier mentally for inexperienced quarterback. But I want to start with the first drive of the game that you guys scored on. How much of the first drive is scripted? Do you plan out that first drive like here's our first 3 plays? Because Foley's touchdown, it looked really similar to the early touchdown against Upper Iowa too.
Yeah, well, yeah, you had mentioned. I think Kyle's done a really good job, and certainly certainly real proud of him, and for him to be a first time coordinator, and Adam as well on the defensive side, and BC with the special teams. They're all new to being a coordinator too, and I couldn't be more proud of all of them and their organization, their detail, their preparation. Been really fortunate in that regard. A lot of all guys that really care about their craft, so to speak, and take it personal. And but to answer your question, yeah, I think I shouldn't say I think. I mean, I was an old coordinator for one year, but most coordinators, and I think that kind of comes from, I don't know if Bill Walsh invented it, but he had his 20 play opening script, and I know Kyle does it. He calls them openers, I think, and you have a plan, and usually it gets sidetracked after about 3 or 4 plays because you get off schedule, but. We were very much on schedule on that opening drive, and and that's the creativity that he showed. We lined up Hank at running back. That's how we scored. We felt we were going to get a one-on-one with a backer, and we liked that matchup. And now X they brought a late blitz, and X took one in the chops. But credit to him, he stood in there and took it, and delivered a really a big time throw to Hank, and all Hank had to do was just run by a guy that he was probably just a little bit faster than, and gave us a hell of a start. And yeah, and then I thought Kyle was pretty darn creative throughout the day. Again, I don't want to give him too much credit. Players are still making the plays, Justin. Okay, but he certainly is putting them in a pretty good. We try to put him in advantageous spots as much as we can, and I think he's done a nice job of that. Through the first 2 games, and really to have 3 different quarterbacks he's had to kind of frame that around. I think he's done a pretty good job of that, and got to continue to build off it too. So yeah, it's there's a lot of moving parts out there, and it goes pretty fast, and the sideline technology was down, and the old school in me's like, geez, I never had that for 20 years, like figure it out. Got all these younger guys kind of freaking out over that stuff because now you're used to having that. Believe me, it's a great tool. Don't get me wrong, I wish I would have had it. But I certainly think those things help. But it goes both ways too, right? Now they can see it too, you can see it. But for the first quarter, it was down on both sides. Like neither sideline had the go to this big time FCS program, and national titles, and their darn sideline equipment don't work. So everybody's got problems too, Justin. It ain't perfect everywhere. I'm finding that out.
Hey,
You know.
it's early in the season for everything, I guess, for
Yeah.
the players, coaches, even the equipment. I didn't have this question down, but just the way you responded with the hey, it's the players making plays. I don't want to give Kyle too much credit. Is that part your dad coming out right there? Like
Oh,
I could
100%,
picture
100%, 100%.
I
Yeah.
could picture
Yeah.
you in your early coordinator years being like, "How did you like this setup?" And he's like, "All right, slow down."
Yeah. Players are still the ones making the plays, and now, but obviously there certainly is an element in coaching. That's why we're here. That's why we're doing this. They don't just let players just run around play backyard football. But again, it is our job. That's what our job is to do, to prepare them and put them in situations where they can succeed. And like I said, I think all of them and really all the coaching staff. It's not just one guy making a call, and you've got to have everybody on the same page, everybody coached up. And I'm real thankful that we've got a really good staff here, a bunch of young guys, and I think they relate to our kids pretty well. And have formed good relationships with them, because that's important when you're in the infancy of a new staff and team. We're still getting to know each other, every single day. And so I think having that relationship piece is important. And I think the biggest sign of not to sound all mushy or whatever, but I think the purest form of love is discipline. It's just like with your kids. You're not going to let your kids slide on certain things. You may let somebody else's kid, but but that's that this is our livelihood. We take it seriously, and we want to hold kids accountable. And and then there's and you want to have some discipline within there. And I think we do that. Could we be better? Absolutely. But I do think I think that's showing up a little bit, in a little bit here and there. And the goal is to, at some point you'd like to have the players holding each other accountable. And I do see a lot of that too. But there's a right way and a wrong way to do that too, in my opinion. You can't be jumping down their throat all the time. Younger guy, put your arm around them, and then they continue to make those mistakes. Well, then, yeah, then you got to maybe kick them in the ass a little bit. But, you see that from time to time. Our leadership is really good here. It was good before we got here too, to my knowledge. I just think it looks and maybe feels a little bit different with us being a new staff, because we got our own personalities. We're all different. And there's plenty of ways to skin a cat, or there's a lot of different ways to be successful. I'm not saying ours is the best, and like I said, we haven't really proved a whole lot yet. Like I said, we're not. The goal to go over to South Dakota State was not to keep it close. It was, I think you just got to, at some point, just start standing up and believing that you got a good football team, believe that you're a good player, and believe that you can go play against anybody. And that's how kind of make a statement, I guess, and and break through. And I just think it's possible here. I do, and I think that's the mentality you got to have.
You get an opportunity this week of trying to get Drake on the map of just, man, this team's ready to go up against anyone, show off that belief that you have in this team, because it doesn't get any easier. Number 15 in the country in FCS, South Dakota on the road. Just what have you seen on film as you start to prepare for this team?
Yeah, and I'll be honest, Justin, I've followed South Dakota's program pretty closely for the past 6 years. Call it my one of my best friends, and really my life. He's the head coach over there. He and I were assistants together at Grandview for 6 years, and just working together, with them every day for 6 years. You get to know somebody pretty well. We're somewhat close in age. We have well, his kids are younger than mine, but he's got 3 kids, I got 3 kids. And stayed in touch with him pretty much daily, for a long time. And so, like I said, I've got a unique uh, perspective of their program, just because I've watched them so much over the years. And what he has done, and what that program has done in the time that he's been there. They've turned themselves into a powerhouse, and it probably wasn't quite like that when he got hired. They weren't playing very good defense over there when he got hired. That's why he got hired. And he kind of turned that place on its head, at least, in his own unique way. On the defensive side of the ball, became one of the top defensive teams in the country, and they have been for the past 4 or 5 years, and made it all the way to either the semis or the quarters last year. I can't remember. Lost in a close game. I think it was Montana State, if my mind serves me correctly. But like I said, I've paid close attention, talked to him. I know they've dealt with a lot of roster turnover. They were really, um, the portal, the money now, all those things. I think got the better of them this offseason. Now, I don't know that I want to say the better of them. They lost some really good players to some Power Four programs. That tells you the kind of talent that was in that program a year ago. But I think he's done a hell of a job of kind of restocking the cupboard, if you will. And and it's hard for that to happen overnight. I know they struggled out of the gate against Iowa State, and then they went down and played an upstart Lamar team down in Beaumont, Texas, when it was 100 degrees. Had every opportunity to win that football game. I mean, they could very easily be a 2-1 team right now. And we all know what Iowa State is around here, like really, really good football team. And but they're sitting at 1-2, and they got a win last week against a good Northern Colorado team. Northern Colorado should have beat Colorado State a couple weeks ago. A call was overturned. I mean, they did beat them, and the call got overturned. I still can't believe it. But anyways, to just kind of dig in, Justin, on more of the personnel piece, I just see a really well coached, physical football team. Their running back last week rushed for 301 yards. I know it's a school record and probably
It was an
some
FCS
other, yeah,
record too, which is
yeah, probably. Like I
301
said,
is
it's
crazy.
yeah, it probably has even more records to it. So I guess what I was getting at a little bit is I think they're still just figuring out who they are as a team, and I just think you'll just continue to see them kind of have an upward trajectory. Just because I know what Coach Johansson's all about. He's a damn good football coach, outstanding defensive football coach. Learned a lot from him, and again, he's got a new staff together, much like us. So I just think they're going to just continue to be a better football team, throughout the course of the year. And that doesn't mean they haven't been one yet. They've just been dealt a pretty difficult set of cards with their schedule. I think a little bit, and not to say that we haven't, but but I just think they're just going to get better and better, and obviously where their next game, it's their next home game. Back to back home games for them. I'm sure they're really excited about that, and but. Quarterback was a transfer from Iowa State. I think he's in his third year as a starter. Mentioned the running back, and the running back's actually a backup. They had a big time one that got hurt down in Lamar. To my knowledge, I think he's out for the year. I mean, I never believe those things when I see him as an opposing coach, but he was a hell of a player. Gave Iowa State all they wanted at times. But to my knowledge, he's out. Like I said, big physical offensive line. They move well. They know what they're doing. Just real impressed with them, especially with that quarterback. I mean, the guy's won a million games, as a starter there, and I never discount that with anybody. I know his numbers may not be what they've been, but he still is a hell of a leader. And again, that's my perspective with knowing Coach Johansson. He tells me how much he loves that kid, and so I know they really believe in him, and he's just a really good football player. And then on the defensive side of the ball, if you take out, and not that you can, but if you take away the Iowa State game, they're playing incredible defense right now. Just being able to defend the run, and that's usually where I judge it first. How are they up front? And they've got a couple of transfers from the University of Iowa on their defensive line, and I mean they are the biggest defensive line I know that we will see all year, and we just played a really good one. But they are big, they are physical. They got linebackers that are active. One of their linebackers played for me at Grandview.
It's
Transferred
kind of
up
like a
there.
homecoming in a way.
Yeah.
You're going to be seeing a lot of familiar faces.
Yeah, well, and I don't shoot. Maybe it is their homecoming. I don't know, but yeah, they're just thoroughly impressed, and I know they're going to be prepared and well coached. And like I said, I talked to Travis quite a bit. Just football too. Because that's and he's just a really good football mind and good leader, and looking forward to the opportunity. Like I told our guys, my goodness, we've had a billion practices, it seems like, since we've been here, and we've only played two football games. So I just can't wait to go watch our guys compete again, just because of how they're playing right now, and it's pretty rewarding to watch how hard our guys play, and that's a testament to them. And we got to continue to do it, because and South Dakota doesn't care how hard we play. We've got to we've got to go match the physicality, and at some point you want to start seeing some results too. And that's why you play the games, and that's why that's why a lot of these kids came here was to play in these types of games. And I know that was one of the things that really drew me here too, was to have an opportunity to go play in these environments. So real excited.
A huge thank you to Coach Joe Woodley, as always, for making time to come on the show. You can check out this podcast, of course, on our social media pages, but also it's been really cool. Drake Football, their Twitter, has been reposting it as well. So really fortunate for the connection at Drake University for them doing that for us. So really appreciate it as well. So that will do it for today's show. Still a lot to get to for Friday. We have previews, we have picks, and who knows, maybe Brian Kelly will yell at someone and have to apologize to them again in a press conference by that time. Who knows what's going to happen? We don't know. What I do know is you guys need to get over to 5320 Northwest Beaver Drive in Johnston, Iowa, because that's where you'll find Stevens Automotive and Sales. They're wonderful people, 35 years of family owned and operated here in the state. They have dealt with all of my family's cars. They've dealt with my car, and that's why I wanted to get them on board, because in the car industry, you can find a lot of BS. You're going to find zero BS over at Stevens Automotive and Sales, and they're wonderful people, so easy to work with. Any of your car issues, get your butt over there to Stevens Automotive and Sales. 5320 Northwest Beaver Drive in Johnston, Iowa. 35 years of family owned and operated here in this state. When you get over there, make sure to let them know that Media Row sent you. A huge thank you again to Coach Joe Woodley. Thank you guys for subscribing, commenting, liking, rating, all that great stuff. And we will see you on Friday as we wrap up this week of the Media Row podcast.